Hi leaders, my name's Hannah and I'll be talking to you about sexual assault and what you can do as leaders to help prevent it, raise awareness, and support those who have been impacted. This is a serious and sensitive topic, but it is incredibly important to talk about. The more we understand, the more we can make a difference. We will be discussing what sexual assault is, the myths and misconceptions, the different types of sexual assault, its psychological and physical effects, and finally, how to reach out, report, and support others. So what is sexual assault? Sexual assault is any unwanted touching or sexual contact that happens without consent. Consent means a clear and knowing response to participate in sexual activity. It is given through words or actions as long as it is clear. If someone is forced, scared, or unsure, it is not considered consent. So when does sexual assault occur? Sexual assault happens anytime a person is forced, pressured, or manipulated into any unwanted sexual activity. Just because a person is in a relationship or someone has power over them doesn't mean they're entitled to anything. If someone says yes because they're scared, that is not real consent. So what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment includes unwanted sexual comments, jokes, or touching. Unlike sexual assault, which is often involves physical contact, harassment can be verbal or non-physical. But either way, they're both extremely harmful and wrong. So what is sexual abuse? Sexual abuse is abusive sexual behavior by one person toward another, usually involving force or manipulation. This often includes taking advantage of someone who is vulnerable or unable to defend themselves. So now we'll be going over some of the myths and misconceptions of sexual assault. The first one is sexual assault is an act of lust and passion that cannot be controlled. But sexual assault is not about passion or lust. It is about power and control. Next, if a victim does not fight back, they must have thought that the assault was not that bad or that they wanted it. But if someone doesn't fight back, it doesn't mean they wanted it. They might be frozen in fear. Another being that a lot of victims lie about being raped or give false reports, but that is completely not true. In fact, only about 2% of reported cases were proven to be false. Next being a person cannot be sexually assaulted by their partner or spouse, but yes, it does happen, and it happens more often than people think. The next being men are not victims of sexual violence, but that is completely not true. Although women are more prone to sexual violence, men are also victims. Next, many people think that sexual assault is usually committed by strangers, but in fact, sexual assault is usually occurred by someone known to the victim. And one of the many last ones is that sexual assault is provoked by the victim's actions, or sexual assault is a consequence of drinking too much, or the victim must have asked for it by being seductive, careless, drunk, high, etc. But it is never the victim's fault. It's not because of what they wore or what they drank or what they said. If they are not giving consent, then it is sexual assault. We need to stop blaming victims and start holding perpetrators accountable. So how often does sexual assault happen in the United States? Over 430,000 people aged 12 and older experience sexual assault each year. 80,000 inmates were sexually assaulted or raped. 60,000 children were victims of sexual assault or sexual abuse. And lastly, 18,900 members of the military had experienced unwanted sexual contact. So who is affected by sexual assault? In reality, everyone can be affected. 90% of reported cases were by females and 10% by men. In numbers based, that's 17.7 million American women as of 1998 reported, and 2.78 million American men as of 1998 reported. And we know these numbers are so much higher as there are unreported cases out there. So where does sexual assault occur? Most people think it happens in dark alleys, but that's usually not the case. According to RAINN, 55% of cases happen near or at the victim's home, 15% in an open public place, 12% at or near a relative's home, 10% in a enclosed but public area like a parking garage, and 8% on school property. So now we'll be talking about some of the different types of sexual assaults that could happen. The first one being stranger rape, which is by someone the survivor doesn't know. The next being blitz sexual assault, which is sudden, brutal attacks with little to no warning. Contact sexual assault is where the perpetrator builds trust with their victim before the attack occurs. Home invasion sexual assault is when the perpetrator breaks into the victim's home and commits the assault. Partner rape is when someone who is in a partner with another sexually assaults or rapes their partner. And yes, it does happen within relationships. Lastly, incest is sexual assault or sexual abuse by a family member. Each form is traumatic and serious regardless of the situation. So now we'll be going into the ages of sexual assault victims. Victims of sexual assault spans all ages, but most are between the ages of 18 and 34. Shockingly, 15% are just 12 to 17-year-old. And that's not even counting those who are younger. This is not just an adult issue, it impacts our youth deeply. So kind of going into sexual assault in children. When a child is harmed sexually, it's child abuse, and it causes both physical and emotional trauma. We must protect minors and report any suspicious behavior immediately. Sexual assault in teens is disturbingly common among teens. 1 in 4 girls have been pressured into sex. 1 in 10 girls and 1 in 20 boys reported being forced into sex. More than 1/3 of acquaintance rape victims are between the ages of 14 and 17. 1 in 3 teens is a sexual victim or other abuse by dating a partner. About 5% of high school students have been physically hurt on purpose by a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And almost 20% of college women reported experiencing sexual assault on campus. So now we'll be going into some of the effects of sexual assault and rape. So some of the psychological effects is that sexual assault is very traumatizing. Survivors may struggle with depression, PTSD, eating disorders, anxiety, shame, and more. Their world changes and healing doesn't happen overnight. Recovering mentally, some survivors try to hide their pain, but it doesn't just disappear. It stays buried, heavy, and hard to carry. And it's okay to ask for help because healing is a journey, not a race. Some of the physical health effects that can be caused is bruising, bleeding. It could be anal or vaginal, difficulty walking, soreness, broken or dislocated bones, sexually transmitted infections or diseases, and even pregnancy. Medical attention is important, and so is kindness to one's own body during recovery. Recovering physically takes time, sometimes months, sometimes years. Sleep, rest, and self-care are important. If you've been hurt, please seek medical help. It's not just physical care, it's emotional support too. This is not your fault. If you've experienced sexual assault, please know that it's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done to deserve or prevent it. You are not alone, and you do not have to carry this by yourself. Sometimes people are wrongly blamed victims by asking, "What were you wearing?" This slide includes images from a museum that proves clothing is never the case. Assault happens regardless of what someone wears. These photos come from the What Were You Wearing museum. The first being pajamas and just typical clothing that you see every day. Then you see some clothing that you would wear to school along with a cheerleading uniform. And you find pajamas and more outing clothes, something you'd wear to a picnic, traditional clothing, bathing suits, military uniforms, a prom dress, children's clothing, and a baby's onesie. Reaching out is for helping the victim, and it is one of the hardest steps to do as a survivor, but it is also one of the most important ones. You deserve support, you deserve healing, and you deserve to be believed. Mandatory reporting. If you are under 18 and you report an assault to an adult, like a teacher or a counselor, they are required by law to report it. This is called mandatory reporting. It is meant to protect you, not to get you in trouble. You, as leaders, are mandatory reporters. If a youth member of yours comes up to you to tell you, you have to report it. Some signs of sexual abuse that you can look out for include drastic behavior changes, fear or anxiety, sexualized behavior or knowledge beyond their age, injuries that they can't explain, withdrawal, depression, or self-harm, or even attempts of suicide. If you notice these signs, please don't ignore them. So what should you do as a leader? As leaders, it is your responsibility to act. If there's an emergency, call 911. If someone violates youth protection policies, report it immediately. You don't need proof for wrongdoing. If you suspect someone is doing something wrong, you need to report it. You are not expected to investigate or determine guilt. Helping survivors. Helping survivors means being there, even when they're not ready to talk. You could say something like, I believe you. This was not your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve this. These words matter more than you know. Lastly, there are some resources that you can give out to your youth. Some school resources that they can contact include their school counselor, their school resource officer, the principal, assistant principals, or a trusted teacher. There are other resources as well, including hotlines like the National Sexual Assault Hotline, the Trevor Lifeline, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and the Street Harassment Hotline. All are trained to help the victim. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope that this helps you understand the warning signs that come behind sexual assault.